professors know that they have that option. Professors now can switch to the mode classes even though they're traveling for a trip and they still think that they're feeling more that they're more concerned by having that flexibility.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome, and thank you so much for your patience. I'd love to introduce you to NeueHouse. If this is your first time joining, welcome again. We are the private and social club for innovators, thinkers, thought leaders. Our members get to work from this beautifully thought-provoking space, and they get to join each other for dinners and receptions and events such as tonight's. And we're really honored to welcome our guests this evening, one of which is a member. It's really exciting. We're always examining the future and technology and where do we find ourselves nestled in this. And it's people like Saul at Chipserver that really put their mind to the challenge. And the challenge to bring equity into digital spaces is something that we all should be taking very seriously right now, because we have the opportunity to make these changes and to envision a world where we are all able to connect. So I want to welcome you to this dynamic conversation where we will talk about the digital divide and the technological advances that are being made for Chipserver and the likes. And we're going to also invite you to participate in a Q&A after. And I invite you to also stick around. We have some food and beverages available for you all. And we invite you to stay in the house and make new friends, ask more questions, and let the curiosity take you from here into your next steps. And share the word. We have some of the chips are actually at the front desk. If you were unable to grab one, make sure that you do before you leave. And with that said, I leave things to this dynamic conversation led by David Glickman, who is the Vice President of Marketing and Sales at Chipserver. Thank you all so much for joining me.
Thank you so much. So my name is David Glickman. I'm the Senior VP for Sales and Marketing. Welcome to Tech for Humanity, sponsored by Chipserver LLC. We want to start the presentation with a short video.
No internet, no connection, no problem. What if you could share videos, slides, and documents anywhere, without Wi-Fi, without the cloud, and even without electricity? Introducing Chipserver, the world's first cloudless wireless streaming data server. Whether you're leading corporate education, hosting a confidential meeting, or teaching off-grid, Chipserver ensures your content shows up when and where it matters most.
Thank you. So I'd like to start by having each of the panelists introduce themselves. I'm going to start with our founder, Professor Saul Troen. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Saul Troen, and I'm the founder of this Chipserver. And I'm a displaced Bostonian, finding myself here in New York City. But it's wonderful to be here and see all of you so that I can share with you my passion for helping the underdog and the underserved.
Dr. Monica Sanchez, please.
It's on? Oh, yeah. Hi, thank you guys for coming. I mean, it's lovely to see you here. I know it's raining outside, you could be anywhere, so thank you for coming. I am Dr. Monica Sanchez, and I have a foundation at the UN. I'm also author of a book, Child of a Child. And today I have Chipserver on my mind. So I hope you guys would look me up on the web to find out more about me.
Rob.
Hello everyone, I'm Rob Gardos. I'm the founder of DBIMA. We focus on driving equity and access to the college admissions space. I'm a serial entrepreneur, been doing it for 25 years, started 6 different companies, internet technology, infrastructure management, rights, and now EdTech. So I've been doing this for quite some time and really excited to be here. Thank you.
Ashley.
I'm Ashley Taylor. In the past, I've helped different companies that have a technological component and a social mission come to market. And a couple years ago, started a venture capital studio called Radical Systems, which is helping to bring impact projects to life. And one of our main focuses right now is a platform called Good Standing. And it's a network that incentivizes and rewards people for impactful community actions on the ground.
Thank you. So we're going to start with Professor Saul Troen. Saul, tell us the story of how Chipserver came about.
Well, it's a long yet short story. It had 2 legs to it. One that I travel with to different countries with groups. And when I would be in those countries, I wouldn't have internet access because we're in the desert or something of that nature. So what could I do? I just, okay. And I just make excuses. Then I began teaching here in New York City. I'm teaching at 3 different universities simultaneously. All my information is on a USB. And I don't know what's on the USBs. Because they all look alike. And yeah, you know, it's a question. So I said, I have to have a way to be able to see what's on the USB without connecting to the internet, because I didn't always have a connection to the internet, without a computer, because very often I didn't have a computer, and without an app. Because with the app, you know, we have problems with that. I don't know about you, but I do. And I said, okay, what can I do? So I engaged, did the research with people, and I found out that there is a way to do and see information on the screen of your devices, of your handheld devices. And so I came up with Chipserver. We take our USB, plug it into the Chipserver, and we connect to the Chipserver through Wi-Fi. And you know, once you connect to Wi-Fi, you get off the internet. So I don't have to worry if the internet is down or up. So that was the beginning of this here. And I was now able to do my lesson because I could read it on the screen of my phone or tablet while I'm on the bus or whatever. And what happened was I was at a class at Hunter College, teaching archaeology. I have, you know, visuals. And I walked in, you know, no electricity. How am I going to teach this class? No computer, no projector 22 young people in the classroom. So I said, okay, I'm gonna do it. I took my USB, which contained the information for the class, put it into my chip server, gave the address, and there's an address for each chip server, to the students. They connected wirelessly from their phones or tablets, whatever it was, to the chip server, and they followed me along while I was teaching. So that showed me that there was a way to use the chip server, not just for me, but for my whole class. And then I got somebody at Cooper Union College who was in a classroom, a government classroom, which didn't allow internet access or any other kind of access. He said, how can I teach my class? I need the internet. So I let him use that for a year with about 40 students. And he came back and he said, oh, this is wonderful. So he said, well, why didn't I go and market it? I brought it to some high-level people. They brought it to their tech department. The tech department said, no, no, no. And the reason I feel is Chipserver is cross-platform. I can use it simultaneously with any device and with any technology, whether it's an Apple or whether it's a Unix or whatever along those lines. So we are now able to do this anywhere in the world. So basically, that's how Chipserver began. Oh yes, the other teachers wanted a copy. So I said, okay, I'll go into production and see what it is. And if I had known what it was going to be, never. Although I have an IT degree, I still wouldn't have.
So, thank you for that. So we know that the story of Chipserver starts. So the story of Chipserver starts in New York City, which is the center of the world, as we know. But the problem of lack of internet access is more widespread throughout the world. So statistically, roughly 1/3 of the world remains offline. 1/10 in the Americas, 1/20th in the USA and New York State, 1/4 in New York City. That's about 2.2 million New York residents without any reliable internet. Saul, is it fair to call internet access a human right today?
It's getting to be that point, because without internet access, you cannot get information. I go to talk to people and I say, listen, I have here a device which will allow you to keep all of your critical information with you wherever you go in the world. I showed it to a friend in another state, and he said, oh, I go around the world and I sell munitions. So all my health stuff is on a USB. Can you put it on your phone? I showed him I could. Wow. So it's ubiquitous, and I believe that it should be available to every single person. But that's my belief. There are governments that say no. Chipserver can avoid that and let them even learn under the covers.
Thank you, Saul. So Monica, what are some of the unique challenges you've seen in bringing digital resources to underserved communities throughout the world?
Wow, there are so many. How much time do you guys have? we're in a technology age. Everything is, on the internet and everything else like that. And we live in New York City, so all of us have phone, we have internet, we have data and all that kind of stuff. But think about communities that are cut off, communities that are in rural areas here in America. I'm not even talking about overseas. Think about the elderly right here in New York City. Apart from being a gender advocate, I also, counsel other people, and there are elderly people who are losing their home because they don't know how to operate internet. And that's just one issue, but you have the younger population and you have the older population. That's one barrier, that they don't understand how to connect the dots with it. Then you have communities that are outside of the scope. They don't have electricity, They don't have, running water. So they're outside of the barriers too. And then you have, of course, communities where there are no funding, there are lack of funding. So there are many barriers that you will encounter. But I think the most important thing here is education. Events just like this, where we can reach out to you guys, who could reach out to somebody else, and maybe some of you can even sponsor some of this stuff, can help education and information about the Chipserver being available and what it does and the importance of it. Because I really do think that this would build bridges and prevent barriers, which is what we're facing right now.
Thank you. So, Saul, I'm sure as you dug in a little bit more into the problem of lack of internet access, both locally and around the world, how is Chipserver a solution to the digital divide?
It's a good question. There's the haves and have-nots. And if you take any magazine that's an education magazine and you read it, it takes for granted that you have the latest and greatest technology at your disposal. They never pay attention to anybody who has not got internet access. I'll give you an example. I was teaching at one of the colleges and a girl came in crying. I said, "Why are you crying?" "I can't understand this particular sentence." So I said, "How would you replace this particular word?" She said, "Oh, now I understand." And another girl said, "Wait a minute, I learned that story when I was in the 10th grade. And now we're in college, we're in our second year. She learned it in the 10th grade because it was on her curriculum. It was also in the curriculum of the young lady who was now learning it in the college." And I said, "What's going on here?" And I paid more attention. And it's built in the structure here in New York City that there are students that will learn the information, and although that information is in the syllabus, it is not provided to the student because they can't get at it. The information is digital and it's in the cloud. And if you can't get there, you cannot do it. So there's another problem with if the child cannot get the information, because what do you need to learn? Information. So now we're able to put all the information on a USB or other type of memory stick, put it into the Chipserver, and every student has the same information and the same opportunity to learn because they can all see the information on the screen. I say screen of their devices. And even if their device is an ancient device, as long as they can turn it on, they can still read the information. So that bridges the digital divide and gives a certain type of equity for everyone, because everyone has the same information that is downloaded from the book dealer. And now any student who has a phone in their pocket or a tablet can learn anywhere, anytime, any place, even without access to the internet. And by the way, I should mention that there are about 200,000 families in the Bronx that do not have internet access. And I can tell you personally that I have people who are learning to be teachers. When I was teaching at one of the colleges, who was coming early to class to learn and do the work on their computer because they were living in the streets and didn't have internet access. So we're talking about a deprived community that is brilliant, and they need the access to learn. And if they have the information, they can learn. And we have to help them do it. That's what Chipserver is doing. Quite frankly, the legacy that I want to leave behind is that every person in the world will have access to their information when they need it. And if the government doesn't want to give it to them, they can still do it because it's on a little USB, which they can put in their pockets.
Thank you. Before we proceed with more questions and answers, we're going to have a small demonstration of the Chipserver device. So can I have a volunteer from the audience to connect to their device? Yes, why don't you come down to the front? I'm going to put the mic down for a sec. So this is the actual Chipserver device. This is the large model used for teachers. We also have a smaller model that people can carry in their pocket. So I have my iPad right here. I'm going to log on internet, and what comes up is Chips. That is the name of this Chipserver device. And if you happen to have more than one device in a room, when you first activate it, you can rename it so you can have access to multiple devices. And very simply, you go right to the browser, and you put in chips.edu into any browser. And very simply, you have a screen that comes up, and I, as the presenter, will go to present. And then I go to share file. You're able to access, so show the audience, turn around first. So you can see over here, she has a very similar screen that I do. And on the screen, it says present or view. So I'm going to hit present.
I'm going to hit view.
And I'm going to go share file. And I'm going to hit, unfortunately, it's not up on the screen, it's only up on my iPad. But this is the PDF that I have. And you can see that it's showing up on Palak's phone. And as I advance the PDF on here, it advances on her phone as well. And this is connected to its own local Wi-Fi. It's not connected to the internet or to any other Wi-Fi device. So that's, in a nutshell, how it works.
So one thing I'd like to add, so I was talking about the access to information, but it's also, when you think of the digital divide, it's not just about access, it's about education. There's a group of population that just doesn't have the education. They don't understand how to browse. It might sound foreign to you, but they just don't understand how to interact and access that information. And what makes this really intriguing is it's organized, it's controlled, it's accessible to that particular community. And I think that makes this really compelling. It's not just, okay, why don't I just, give them local access to 5 sites? You can't control that. Here, you can control the information so the actual folks on the other side can actually get value from it. Because that's what this is all about, driving value, not just making something available.
So Ashley, why don't you continue on that a bit? What does tech for the good of humanity mean to you?
Thanks for the question. I think that a lot of the platforms that we have today, social networks, social media, but also if you think about tech in general, optimize for the bottom line and optimize for investor return. And that has gotten out of control in terms of what our social outcomes are. So I think tech for good is starting to optimize for things that we would like to see more of within society. So a good example is most of our social networks right now optimize for division. We know this. We know their algorithms want to polarize us. We know that they want to drive more extremist points of view. So a tech for good platform would start to optimize for collaboration, for understanding how other people think, for working together, post-partisan, coming across the aisle. So our platform, Good Standing, is directly doing that, but I think sort of that type of philosophy could infuse the tech industry as a whole, and that's what I'm interested in.
So Rob, where else do you see tech meaningfully closing gaps in the world today?
causing gaps. There's a lot of gaps. I'll tell you that. Huh. Well, listen, I think outcomes are important. You have to think about what the intention of the organization is. And when you look at it, because the intent of what they're trying to accomplish is going to drive what they do, independent of what their marketing says. So Khan Academy, I'll get to your question. But Khan Academy is a great example of something. It's a nonprofit. It's designed to provide information in an accessible way. And most importantly, that information is controlled. When we live in a society of misinformation, disinformation, just because information is available doesn't mean that's necessarily a good thing. So when you think about, what's going to work, think about the organization, think about what drives them. A nonprofit that's looking to sort of teach students, that's a good thing. Another organization in the college space where their focus is, we're going to help you go through this process, but in reality, they're selling your data to a college. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with for-profit organizations, but it's lack of transparency. Don't pretend that you're doing A when in reality, you're gathering information surreptitiously to sell, because that's what drives you. So I think, thanks. But when you talk about gaps, I really think it comes down to lack of regulation. I'm not talking about government regulation, but standards. Think about ChatGPT. Oh my God, in my world of college admissions, people talk about ChatGPT as the great equalizer. It's going to democratize this information. Everyone has access to it, assuming you have access to the internet at all. And I thought that was insane, because now we're teaching, and I'm not saying there's no use for it, but it shouldn't be the way that people learn how to write. And it shouldn't be, we're going to push everything down, right? And that's going to democratize it by pushing everyone down? No, we have to push everybody up, right? That's the whole point. So when I think about gaps like that, those are the things. And there's so many uses of technology that are super exciting in the ed space and in healthcare. But I just always remember the gaps are going to be driven not by the technology, it's going to be driven by the incentives of the organization that is providing that technology. That's where the gaps are really.
Thank you. Let's get a little bit more to the charitable aspect of Chipserver. So, Monica, you work with a lot of underserved communities in areas in the Africa and the Caribbean. How did you meet Saul, and how did you realize that Chipserver could help you in your charitable endeavors?
Oh my goodness. So I give a very short introduction of myself because the focus here is Chipserver. But I'm an advocate, a gender advocate at the United Nations for the past 21 years. And so we had a forum on education because it's so important to have access to education. And I don't know how many of you know the UN have 17 goals. One of them is leaving no one behind. Another one is access to education for everyone. So we had one of those. I had a conference at the UN, and Saul was invited. And he spoke on this very device that he had, and I was so excited. I was like, oh my goodness. I advocate strongly. I have foot on the ground in 9 countries, and most of them are in Africa. I also am the dean of a school, UNESCO Institute for Passion Education, where we teach life skills, and it's such a challenge, but up to date, we have graduated more than 250,000. And 25% of those have started their own business. They have startup. Banks were impressed with what we're doing, and they give them startup loans. But it's such a challenge because it's in Africa. And as you know, it's not stereotyping, but there are communities that are rural, and it's lack of electricity. They don't have water, they don't have, some of them are under trees. And it's really, really important to have information. And in the age when we're here in New York, we have this tech level all the way up here, to think that there are communities that don't even have cell phones, that don't know anything at all about what's happening in the real world. So we're leaving the majority of people behind. And we're not building bridges with tech, we are building barriers. And so we need to have access, more access for people who cannot and do not have access to education or information. I will give you an example. We just had a COVID epidemic, right? You know how many communities did not find out or did not know what is happening until someone got on some sort of vehicle and drove into the village and says, oh, this is going on. This should not happen. So this is really, really important, Saul's device, because it would give us that vehicle that would take us to not leaving people behind, and to build bridges, that barrier with the tech. It's not going to be easy, and it's not what you would call an overnight thing, but it's a vehicle that could be a lifeline to these people.
Thank you.
Oh, by the way, I wrote my book, and it talks about a lot of those issues that I just spoke about, and it's called Child of a Child. It's on Amazon. It's about defending my work that I do with the girls.
Available on Amazon. So we spoke a little bit about barriers to entry. Rob, what is the best way to help underserved communities navigate the college process to get past those barriers to entry from your experience?
Yeah, the college process is pretty complicated for everyone, all communities actually. The underserved in particular, because really they don't have the support system. Think first generation, parents that are not engaged. Average number of students that a single counselor at a public school supports is 500, and they're not just supporting students on their college journey. If you think about colleges, the wrong decisions for, education is the great equalizer in my opinion. We want to push people to get educated. But if you make that wrong decision because you don't have the support, there's a reason why 1/3 of the folks that start college drop out. These are not good numbers. Technology can absolutely do a lot. This is what we're focused on. We're focused on, most importantly, and after a lot of mistakes that we made, driving engagement, coming up with a solution that students actually will participate and use, and it will support them methodically through the process, and understanding that no one does this alone. Maybe your parents aren't engaged, but maybe you have friends and teachers and whoever. So coming up with a collaborative vehicle that walks the students step by step through the process of, how do I find a school that's going to be a good fit, not just academically, not just maybe socially, but financially. What's the use if I'm going to go to a college that I'm going to accumulate a huge amount of debt and not succeed? That doesn't really work. Obviously, starting from that to actually going through the mechanical process of completing the application, ultimately to driving an enrollment decision. And I think what we found the most important thing is it's not just about the student, it's about empowering the school counselors, it's empowering the nonprofit CBOs, community-based organizations that have the mentors. So that's what this is all about. How do you empower an ecosystem so a student, when they're sitting there trying to figure out what the heck do I need to do and what's the right college for me, we're hoping to get to that point in the first place, we enable them to actually make that right decision so when they go to that school, they have a good outcome. So for us, it's all about engagement and ultimately that outcome. And the outcome is graduation. Ultimately, the outcome is getting that first job. So to me, that's an impactful thing, and that's what we're focused on.
Thank you. So Chipserver is on the line between a consumer product and a charitable endeavor. So Ashley, tell us a little bit about the difference between building a tech product and building a movement.
Well, I think both Chipserver and Rob's platform are good examples of when technology is designed well, it is probably our most powerful tool for catalyzing a movement. And I think in the past, or maybe why we don't have as many good examples, is along the way, people start out building these platforms, they have these social missions, they get a lot of traction, they get a lot of users, a lot of data, and they start sort of making decisions that mean they optimize for the wrong things, and then that's sort of a snowball effect. And then all of a sudden your movement still exists, but it's very far from the original mission or intention that you started out with. So I think the real difference is the company or the organization having a solid, transparent, moral compass, that it builds that community with its users around that particular mission, and then potentially even starts to integrate ways that that community is actually upholding that vision or that mission. So I think that's our most powerful tool to address the big problems that we have today.
Thank you. Saul, you spoke briefly about leaving a legacy. Tell us a little bit more about what you hope to leave and accomplish with Chipserver.
I retired twice, and I'm back to work. I'm only 89 years old. And what am I going to do with my time? I enjoy being with youngsters, trying to help them grow and become people who can contribute to society. So and as I said, I don't know if I told the story, but when I was going for my IT degree, I was told to go to schools up in the Bronx. And I visited those schools, and I walked in, and I was into classrooms in which the students were standing. There weren't enough seats. And they were sitting on the ledges. They were paying attention. I guess I was in there. But nonetheless, I cried. We had bright minds that couldn't learn because they didn't have the books. Can you imagine? They didn't have to, and if they did have books, some of them couldn't take them home because they were expensive. And I went to the principal. I said, "What's going on here?" He said, "That's how it is here." So then I got involved with some of the non-for-profits. I was dealing with classroom management systems and then with video conferencing. I'm published in telehealth. And I look around. What can I do to contribute to society? And for me, I would like to leave a legacy in which every single individual, I say individual, not just kids, because even adults are constantly learning. In jobs, you change jobs, you have new technology, you have new ideas, but everybody in the world can have a chip server so that they can get the information that they need when they need it and when and how they need it. I mean, I get a little bit teary when I think of this, and I think of the students who do not have access. And my legacy really would be to enable every student to learn so that they can learn under the covers to the spaceship without having to worry about connectivity to the internet. Because why? They will have that which they need. The information will be in their back pocket. So they have it with them. So that's my legacy I hope to do. And maybe with your help, we can move that. Because frankly, if we don't, we'll be in for trouble. And, I did my dissertation on science fiction. Everything that I read back in the 40s, yes, and the 50s is here today. Okay? By the way, I should tell you, I'm living history. How did I start to learn? With a pen that went into an inkwell. Do you know what an inkwell is? Okay? And now what do I have? I have AI. Look at that. But the AI has a problem. Not everybody can access it. And if they do access, they can become addicted and not use it the right way. And governments can manipulate the information. On the other hand, it's another way of getting information. And that's what people need in order to survive. How do you bandage a broken leg? When do you take an aspirin? When do you get a massage? All of those things have to be taught. And since my area, by the way, is the ancient Near East. And what leads me to believe and want to have everybody learn is I know the ancient languages, hieroglyphics and cuneiform. And when you read the stories of the ancient world for a couple of thousand years, you see they have the same stories going 1,000 years, 2,000 years. And what did they all do? Try to get the people educated. How to live in society. And if we don't have that, where are we going to be?
Thank you, Saul. Very profound. Saul's inkwell will be available for auction after the presentation.
Don't laugh, I have about 8 fountain pens. That worked.
So before we get to a little Q&A, I'd like to let each of the panelists give a few parting words and perhaps focus a little bit about how Chipserver can help humanity other than strict education, other uses to help people out there who need the help. Let's start with Ashley for a few comments.
Yeah, and I also just wanted to say, we're talking a lot about doing good. And right now, I think people relegate that into a category that doesn't make money or isn't valuable. And I want to emphasize that I actually think focusing on these types of initiatives, movements, platforms will actually lead to more value over time. It may look different in this current economy that we have that is, crashing, don't say it too loud. But we're having a lot of struggles, right? So I think that thinking in this way is actually an economic argument as well. So I'll say that. And I know there's a lot of different applications that you guys have talked about in terms of medical industry and things like that. And I think that's an exact example of actually focusing on real world problems will lead to more social and economic value.
Thank you, Ashley. Rob, few words?
Yeah, I agree with it. That what you just said, that's good. Really good. Very short. No, I think what makes this really interesting is think about, I mentioned this before around organization. You can organize content around the community and what that particular community needs. And I think that's really special because the internet is too much information in some cases. And if you're trying to control information, especially if you can sort of guarantee that there's some group that's ensuring the information has some accuracy as opposed to where we are today, it could be incredibly valuable for communities for tasks like that. How do I change a bandage and how do I do this? And what was the example you said in the back? I'm going through menopause and I think that a witch has hexed me.
TMI.
Okay. No, not you. Someone was going through menopause and then they believed that they were being hexed by a witch or something to that. So certain communities need access to certain information and they need to access that information differently. And you have that power with this platform and I think that's really, again, interesting.
Thank you, Rob. Monica, please.
Oh my goodness. Let's correct that. No, but it's true. I feel that this device can take us back to a place where we can have focus and control. As we are in New York, we know our governor just implemented no phones in the classroom. And I think all of this is because there's so much information and access available online. You can go on YouTube and find out everything and anything. But with this device, you can have a controlled environment for your kids. You can have what you want them to focus on, and you can have more focus and control because I look at a lot of videos on YouTube myself, and it shows that our teenagers are not as up to date as Japan or China and these places. So we need to have more focus. They're so distracted by everything that's available to them on the internet. And even though you have parental control on a lot of these channels, I still think that they find a way because they're tech savvy. So if we have this can give us back that control and that focus so we can actually have our students going in a direction that would be more beneficial to them.
Thank you. And again, before we get to the Q&A, a final word from our founder, Professor Saltro.
I'm excited to be here, listening and looking at the faces. No one fell asleep. Don't laugh. You know.
He's a professor. He's used to it.
What can I tell you? But I'm trying to get out a message that's very close to me, and that is to enable everyone to maintain control of their critical information and access it whenever they want. How many of you have lost information that you put onto the internet, that you put onto the cloud? And you'll get a little note, oh, I have to tell you that my business was hacked, and they have your telephone number and everything. Oh, I'm sorry, but we're getting rid of such and such a program. Well, listen, Microsoft is now getting rid of Windows 10. So I have to now pay to get another Windows a little bit up, and I have to buy another computer. I mean, I have now computers going back 12, 13 years because they have information on it that I need. And oh, by the way, you remember the old floppy disks? They don't know what a floppy disk is. All right. Okay. So they can, in an instant, destroy all the information that you have, so you'll never be able to get at it. And what we have is an instrument that's based on a technology which we hope will go on and on, but it comes with a small unit, you saw one of it, that as long as you have that unit and you have the a USB or other type of a chip, you can access the information. I have USBs that are 12 years old. I can access them. Now I'll open them up and show it to you. But the point is, information is important. And for those of us who have dealt with the ancient world and with the ancient languages, we know that if it isn't written down, it doesn't exist. And this will enable each one of you to preserve your memories. You can have all the pictures of the family. This can become your portfolio, and it can be an inheritance for your children and grandchildren. So this is what we have. It's a ubiquitous technology. It's a platform that can be used for anything from gaming to robotics to any subject. I mean, I look forward to the day. I don't know, do any of you remember when you were able to get the record club of the month?
Yeah. And they sent you the little 45 up there.
Yeah, right. Okay, that's by the way, the Victrola is coming back.
Oh, no. So
And the other thing is so-called the record player. But here now, we have a device that will play information that is 12 years old. And it's built in such a way that as we go into the future, as long as they have the type of technology, this will be able to adapt to new technologies that are coming on, because this is a platform, and it's an open platform.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Before we get to the Q&A, I just want to give a thank you to Samuel Kelly for originating and providing for this forum, and we'll be available afterwards for additional questions, but now we'd like to take some questions for the audience, so I'll give the microphone.
Hi. First, I want to commend you to Chipserver. I think it's amazing. The first time I heard about it, I was floored. I'm an education specialist and a youth advocate. And Ashley, one of the things that you mentioned was so profound as far as this pendulum switch that's happening as far as good. Our alpha generation is really focusing on that. They're tired of us. And they really look at purpose. And I do agree with you. But now my question to the panel is, that's the generation we should really be focusing on. And what are some of the strategies that you guys are implementing to attract them? Because to be honest with you, they are the changing nation. You know, they're the ones that really has the open mind, that has learned from the 80s, 90s, and everything else. They're actually gravitating to 70s and 80s music in the entertainment industry. And it's amazing to watch it, you know, because they've relegated that some of the things that have happened in the 90s and 2000 doesn't apply. So I would love to hear what you guys are doing to galvanize that generation towards this humane technology.
You're saying the younger generation? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think they are growing up in a world, as you're saying, where they're already aware of the future that was laid out for the previous generations not being, or being a myth, not even being a reality. So you have a lot of young folks who are looking for a different framework and a different way of engaging, a different way of working, a different way of creating. So one of the ways that we're engaging them is providing ideas of how they can get involved with different organizations that already exist within their community. Those organizations are able to say, hey, we need help with volunteers to come and help with our community garden or things like this. And that type of skill building and relationship building is something that's foundational and we think sort of missing within the educational system. It's also missing maybe within the home environment for a lot of folks, and can also lead to real outcomes that are, you know, maybe if you do these types of shifts, you're actually bringing like some produce home and that's putting food on the table. So we're focusing on things that are both just addressing, again, real problems, but also about getting off of the screen and into the real world and making relationships. And I think that's a different kind of era of social media we can go towards.
Yeah, I'd love for us to go to that world of off the screens. For us, we realized a while ago we need to go to the students and we need to figure out how they engage and what's going to get them interacting, no matter what I'd like them not to do. I mean, unfortunately, they are on screens. I'd love to get them off the screens. But it's not just about screens. You know, when we talked about building our platform, it was mobile first, and we thought about what does that mean, because mobile just doesn't mean it works on my phone. There's just a way of interacting that is expected, kind of incremental work, bite-sized chunks, constant sort of, yes, you do this next, and good validation, I'm on the right path, and that's just sort of this back and forth interaction that I'm finding the younger generations, that's what they demand. So I think no matter what we do, we can't pretend that they're going to follow us. We have to sort of say, how can we appeal to them, and that's going to get them engaged. And I'd love, for us, again, we're focused on that college admissions process, but getting them off the screens and actually physically interacting, I'm all for that. I think we should, worldwide make phones stop working for a certain period of time every day. But I don't think I can do that. We'll just have the Chipserver then, so then we can figure it out.
Well, our life skills that we teach are skills like hairdressing, hat making, cake baking, cleaning house, tailoring, things that would get them off of the screen. So, and we qualify them under UNESCO Institute of Fashion Education. So they feel empowered. They have a certificate to show that they're qualified now to do what they already know to do, but we just tailor it into a business setting. So I think that's one way to engage them. We have, because I have foot on the ground in Africa a lot, and my organization is called Miss CARICOM, we have a lot of farming. So we have a program that's called Making Farming Sexy. And we have farms where the children leave school, like primary school, going to high school, and they come on the farm and they learn how to do farming. But the program is called Making Farming Sexy, so it's appropriate for teenagers. So I think a lot of hands-on, on the ground, foot on the ground activities will take them off. And I think Chipserver can do just that, because I'm so excited about this Chipserver for my programs, because I deal so much in underserved communities, and I think it's just like, it's like a lifeline.
You know, there's a joke that says, why are grandchildren and grandchildren so close? Because they have a common enemy. So anyway, all right, that one didn't go over that well. What can I tell you? Oh, I'm sorry, I meant grandchildren and grandparents. All right, you know, what can I tell you? At my age, I forget certain things. But the point is, it was mentioned that the youngsters are going back a generation. When I was a kid, I know we went back a generation. So the question is, why? What is the connection? And here, I believe is, and I'll tell you, when I was teaching at MCNY, almost every student that I had, these people, the school was geared for those who had been in the working world and now were coming to get education. Who was taking care of the children while they go into school? Their parents. So the grandparents have a connection to the grandchildren because they are the caretakers. And they're setting the example because they're allowing their parents to learn. So that has a spin-off. And what we have to do is to encourage that and make a way for that. And we really don't honor that commitment. And we don't say that there is, how should I put it? I always ask my children, the students, how many of you have songs that glorify learning? How many of you have songs that glorify learning?
A, B, C.
But that's the only one. That's the only one. So you learn the alphabet as a game. However, if you look at the biblical text, it tells you that you're supposed to teach your children when they wake up in the morning to the time they go to sleep. And when they walk in the street and when they sit down. So you have a way, and I'll tell you, I use this stuff with my class in one of the schools. Because they're geared for this type of interaction. We have to set examples. And if the grandparent sets the example for the grandchild, that filters into the parents because they have to accommodate to being in that level. And so I would suggest that we look at education a la family style and to make ways that the elderly, the older people, will be able to transmit their knowledge to the younger. And that means that education and learning will continue from one generation to the other. And if you see that there's a line that goes along, then you can begin to have interaction between different groups. And to respect the fact that every thought that you have is as equal as another thought. All thoughts are valid, and we should listen to them, and that has to be taught. And that's not what the generation which is just below us has right now.
just said is amazing, because not only do the grandparents teach the children, at this point, with internet, computers, digital, it's the children teaching the grandparents.
Okay.
I was speaking at an educational conference last week. It was called the Learning Ideas Conference. And there were two things that really resonated with me. One was the extreme proliferation of learning with games. And with the limited attention span of students, unfortunately, nowadays, games are really the way to go. And Chipserver has a unique play in learning with games. That's one. Number two, Monica mentioned farming. And one of the speakers lived in Kenya for 6 months. He's a professor of education. And he was talking about how some of the locals have devices, but they don't have access to internet. They have to walk 2 or 3 kilometers just to get access to internet. But what he was able to do was, when they can go to get access, download whatever they have to do, and then without access, they can literally point the phone at a plant, and they can tell if the plant is sick, what it needs, what nutrients it needs. And if the farmer was able to have access to a chip server with all that information on it, that would be an even better step. So many applications, that we could think of for increasing education throughout the world. Yeah.
Do you think there's any way we can use ChatGPT so it's actually helping instead of dumbing down learning?
That can be used for Chipserver. One of the technicians that we have has found a small program that could be used to be downloaded to a USB. Because all the chat is, the information that you put in, it's a glorified encyclopedia. So yes, the answer is yes. When we get going on certain areas, we will try to move into, I see that probably in about 1.5 years that we'll be able to do that.
So ChatGPT is a large language model. Yes. There are other formats of smaller language models that can go onto the chip server. Have you already been experimenting with that to use it as an AI as well? So yes, the application is certainly there, sure.
Okay, first of all, I love the vision you have. I think I'm a testimony of whatever vision you have, because I grew up without internet and electricity till 10th of my grade. And when I got internet, the life changed. I made it to New York. So first, I completely acknowledge that. But it also gave me a very strong reflection point that going ahead in future, when the internet has become the center point of governance and economy and accessibility to information, and even having human rights, because I work in the space, I work with the UN network implementing child rights. So my question to you is how something like Chipserver, because the conflict areas like Sudan or Palestine or the rest of the world where you don't have accessibility to internet, and the governments are authoritarian who deny accessibility. So do you think accessibility can be, the accessibility to internet can be changed through Chipserver, or how does that work?
Again, this is not internet. This is a product that takes information that serves the information. It's not on the grid, it's off the grid. Try to imagine that it's difficult to understand. It is local, it's in your hand. Now, how would that be used? It would enable everybody to get and pass information from one person to the other. So for example, if I had one chip server in a classroom or a rec hall or whatever, everybody in that class could access that unit, and all the information that's on the unit, everybody could see the files and could interact with them. It's a different way of having information. But what's also important that you talk about, the government says you can't get on the internet. So what? I have the information with me. I can share that with somebody else. So this can help bring freedom to the country in which access to information is being denied.
Chipserver for democracy.
You're right.
Hello, thank you so much. I have a tech-heavy question, more so, because I'm still trying to wrap my head around some of the tech. Utilizing that information in the classroom, is that information then passed on beyond the 50 feet? So when a student goes home, are they then able to access that chip server based on that URL, that landline URL, because at some point they're in it, or do they have to be within the vicinity of that space?
The device, Chipserver, is designed for the classroom, which is about 50 feet from the unit itself. We do have units that'll go 200 feet. It is a local device. It is a mobile, local workplace and classroom.
So would it be more comparable to like an air gap where the information is just local within the gap?
Yeah, but you can share that and have people stream simultaneously all at the same time. So if the instructor wants to show a video to everyone at the same time, all 25 people in the class will see it simultaneously. If you want to download an assignment, let's say you have an agreement with a publisher, which we're working on, you can, okay, please read chapter 9, download chapter 9, and they can read that chapter at night. So it's a way to send the information on a group level to everyone at the same time.
If I may add to that, it's like having a library. We're all in a library, and each one of us is taking out a different book. So you can go onto the information on the chip server, but each person that within the area can access a different program on it. So we all can take out a different book at the same time, or we can have the same book that all of us do at the same time. So it's like having a portable library.
Let me get back to the young lady and complete the answer. There are two ways in which Chipserver is used. One, it is a mobile, local, as I say, workplace classroom. I only need one for the entire class because everybody can access the files. The same file or different files makes no difference. Then if each individual has his own Chipserver, each individual can have all the same information with them that they can then take with them wherever they go. If they go on vacation, they can do that. If they go on visiting, they can do that. So now that again becomes a mobile, local classroom for themselves in their back pocket.
Another question. I think that clarifies the question I was going to ask, is whether the files were downloadable to the devices offline, because our phones can hold data offline.
So the files are downloadable in certain formats.
Yeah, that's the other thing I was going to ask, is what formats does that hold?
As the chip server, the files can be downloaded to an individual device, okay, and you can take it with you, yes.
The instructor, but I mean the students that are accessing the files can only, it's read-only then. So they can access it, but they can't download if they don't have a chip server, correct?
So,
but they have a screen, they can see it.
correct. No, they can also download it onto their phone, laptop, or tablet. They can download it as well.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was going to say. And then my last question is, what program, and like, is it Excel, Word? Like now we're even using stuff like, you know, coding and Premiere Pro, or somebody say ChatGPT. So all the formats are, if I'm going to take this and put it in my computer, I can send that Premiere Pro file as a filmmaker. I can go here, I can go there with Word and Excel or whatever I'm going to utilize.
As an example, you can download an MP4, you can download a PDF, you can download a Word file or an Excel file, because those are proprietary. but PDFs and MP4s or JPEG you can download as well.
Open office?
We're working all the time on getting more applications, but there are limitations that we can, with the owners of the programs, but it's evolving as we speak.
Okay, thank you.
We have one more up here, and then I'll come down to her in just a second.
Yeah, this is for the whole panel. I was wondering about the curation of the content. And for Saul and Monica as well, maybe specifically, there's been a lot of scrutiny over the importance of standardized testing, ACTs, SATs, in the college application process, also in high schools, but also specifically in the Caribbean. I'm a journalist. I went down to St. Croix years ago. I was doing a story, and one of the common refrains was math itself has potentially racist implications due to these gaps that we're discussing. The resources to get tutors, the standards in the school, across utilities and technology. So I'm just wondering, and perhaps in Africa or specifically the Caribbean, how you fill those gaps, how you curate the content on the Chipserver for specific communities in places where marginalized individuals are underserved.
I could answer that. Before I said that there are some barriers and restrictions like financial, age limit, location, and a lot of other things that I mentioned. So one of the ways that we are working on to try to close that gap is each country or each department or each area has a specific criteria. So we download all of that information onto our USB, and then we take that Chipserver to a central unit. We're trying to create portable classroom, and what that actually means is having groups of communities, of citizens in different communities, and have them have that unit so they're able to then teach or share that information with that community. So it would be like YouTube have access to everything. You can actually go on there and get all the information, but you don't have access to YouTube. So the Chipserver comes in extremely handy in these contents, because we can then take the information from YouTube or from the educational department, download it, and then take it into a remote area. If you've been to the Caribbean, and that's wonderful, I'm from Guyana. And so they're indigenous and rural areas that don't have electricity, don't have access to a lot of things. And you can actually share that. In some areas, children take boats to go to a certain location just to go to school. So you can avoid that kind of dangerous traveling and all of that. So you can take that unit. So this is why we're so excited. That's why it's such a lifeline. Thanks.
When it comes to information, the information that one would use would be coming from the community itself. And they are the ones who choose what will be put onto the Chipserver. So in that way, the information from one village can be different than from another village, because the village has decided this is good for our community. And that's another value that the Chipserver had, because it's not static. You can change it, you can modify it to meet the needs of the user. Now that can be good or bad, but you understand that if you feel that it's a bit racist, in what way? Let's change it. Because nothing is written, so mathematics are numbers. Yes, they'll say, well, the number looks this way or that way. But let's change it and how it looks. I know that certain songs and stories that we learned as a kid are not used today. And my students, for whom there were races for whom that those books were eliminated, are very upset, because they would like their children to read their books. So That's why it has to be in the hands of that local community.
It's focus and control to create a more positive outcome. So you have more control and more focus as to exactly the content that you want that community to have. So it gives you that focus and control, and hopefully that will result in a more positive result.
First of all, before I go with my question, I would like everyone in this room to give a big round of applause for Professor Saul here. I must tell you, sir, at your age, the knowledge you have been sharing to us and sharing to the world now at large, it's really commendable. And as it says Chipserver, for me, it can be Chipsaver, in a way that what Dr. Monica Sanchez was saying, when it comes to the young generation of today, everything is out there that you could just pick it up on the internet, and we don't know who is an adult and who is a kid anymore. And that is a big setback for our community, our parenthood, and our families. And if this Chipserver can be controlled as to whatever we need to put out there and correct, then that is indeed a very great aspect of this device. So on that note, thank you for your great invention.
You said that it's about focus and control of it, but we are in the last question, and it's like a provocative, I guess, question, opening another possibility. Could this be the tip of an iceberg? The tip of an iceberg in a great way, because if we can access so much information without internet, could it be another solution for something else that we don't even imagine?
The answer to that is yes, because you asked the question, so I have to go. We can also use the Chipserver for IoT, Internet of Things, which is outside of what we're talking about now. It is a platform, so it has aspects which as yet we haven't even scratched the surface because we're not there yet. As we grow and the company grows and has certain branches, yes, we would do that. But right now, we are very focused, and one of the reasons we're focused is being on this incubator at St. John's University. The students that worked on it analyzed the software, they analyzed the hardware, they came up with uses, and then they came up with business plans. And all of them said, if you begin, you must begin with education. So we are following what they came and told us. And as you can see, there are other branches, and as we grow bigger, we will be able to handle that. We're a startup. We're taking baby steps. And I thank you for your question so you can understand where Chipserver can really go. Because it's a handheld server that does what the big servers do. It's got more power than the one that they had at MIT way back when.
So if you want to find out more information, or if you'd like to buy a Chipserver, you can go to thechipserver.com. And please, if you are interested in becoming partners with us, please come speak with us. We're interested in partners. And finally, I want to ask for a big round of applause for our esteemed panel. Ashley Taylor, Rob Davis, Dr. Monica Sanchez, and especially our founder and visionary, Professor Saul Troen. Please give a round of applause.
Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Thank you all for taking the time to share. Thank you, Professor. Thank you so much. Thank you all for your inquisitive nature tonight. The questions were phenomenal. I invite you to stick around and continue to lean into that, ask more questions, and leave here knowing that you're a part of something of the future. Thank you so much for joining tonight, and we'll see you next time.